Told you. So Donald Trump says he believes in reparations, reparations for white people who have suffered under DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here it is.
I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit, unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies, policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all.
Here's how Joy Reid and Don Lemon reacted to Trump's proclamation.
Reparations, but for white people. This is America.
So in other words, reparations for white people. Any comments on that, Trump likes?
Now, I really would like, specifically, Black Trump supporters to opine on this measure. I consider it to be madness. You all have an invitation here anytime. As for the Trumpites, well, we already know this was the plan all along. Let's put up, there he is. He is the great champion of the racist bigot in America. What used to be a discussion at a dinner table inside of the home of racists everywhere has now become policy via Donald Trump. President-elect Trump said he would tax the endowments of schools engaging in racial equity and fine them. What about HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, like where I work at? Our endowments are historically lower than other institutions. You're going to fine Black colleges for engaging in the upliftment of Black culture? Keep his picture back up. So remember, he's proposing, quote, a portion of the seized funds will be then used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies, policies that hurt our country so badly, end quote. While Trump doesn't explicitly say who would be considered victims of the so-called equity discrimination, it's safe to presume that he intends to center this on white families, given the slew of DEI lawsuits, anti-DEI lawsuits that have gone to court claiming anti-white discrimination, including lawsuits filed by America First Legal, which was founded by Trump's incoming Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. Democratic strategist Amicia Cross warns that Trump's plan to eliminate the Department of Education will have a sweeping impacts on Black and brown communities. Quote, there are a vast amount of individuals across this country who don't understand essentially the functions of the department, up to and including student debt relief, but also things like the Pell Grant, which helps provide college accessibility for over 80% of the Black population, Cross told the Griot. Quote, many of those students will go on to HBCUs and other institutions, and they would not stand a chance without being able to have some of the grant funding support that comes out of the Department of Education. One of the institutions I'm a professor at, roughly 90% of our students receive some form of federal financial aid because of the median income household they come from. This is fair. Money, lack thereof, or a zip code should not be the determining factor if you're able to achieve in higher education or not. And that was the spirit and is the spirit behind these programs through the Department of Education. Now, can the Department of Education do better? Of course, every department in the federal government has room to do better. Cross explained that the Department of Education is also responsible for investigating claims of discrimination against students based on race, gender, disability, or religion. She noted that these include students who have been abused, students who are calling out because they have significant trauma from events that happen on campus, including incidents like the recent pro-Trump racist text sent to Black college students across this nation. In terms of reparations for slavery, for the record, I want to remind everyone, on April 16, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed a bill emancipating enslaved people in Washington at the end of a long struggle. But to ease the slave owners' pain, the District of Columbia Emancipation Act paid those loyal to the Union up to $300 for every enslaved person freed. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, slave owners received reparations. Enslaved African Americans got nothing for their generations of stolen bodies, snatched children, and expropriated labor other than their mere release from legal bondage. The compensation clause is not likely to be celebrated today. But as the debate about reparations for slavery intensifies, it is important to remember that slave owners, far more than their slave, were always the primary beneficiaries of public largesse. This is it. Here we go again. I mean, it's really repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. It looks different, but it's the same. So rinse and repeat. So who's at the top of the list to get reparations now? White people. Those who have been, well, discriminated against based on, according to Trump, DEI policies. But I said this prior when he was in office the first time. His launch against diversity, equity, and inclusion comes with a plan. Now, this would have been executed in his reelection, but he wasn't reelected. But I said it then, and to those, especially to those on the left who stood in agreement with getting rid of affirmative action, I said then, you're misguided because you're playing checkers, they playing chess. They got to get rid of affirmative action in order to clear the way to do things like this. I wrote it in an op-ed in Rolling Out. You can see it now. So this was the plan all along, to get to this space. And while we keep reacting as if we're playing checkers, they continue to move forward because they are playing chess. And this was a strategy from day one. They have somehow leaped over the element, the conversation of reparations for the disenfranchised Black folk in the United States of America. They have decided to bypass that argument in order to trade it for the argument that whites were illegally treated based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The first sign is when Donald Trump signed an executive action eliminating DEI from federal contracts. He basically made it illegal to engage in any DEI type of workshops or mandates for those who had federal contracts. And then the movement continued. And now the person who's the architect for this madness is going to have a position with his administration, a chief position at that. Jordan, thoughts here?
I'd like for any conservative, and especially Trump or a member of his next administration, to explain not just DEI, but how people have suffered from DEI. I would love to hear an explanation because I hear it thrown around as a buzzword, along with critical race theory, which, as you and the audience, we all know, they don't understand because critical race theory is not present in kindergarten classrooms. Critical race theory is often a part of a law school curriculum when you're evaluating the law and historic injustices. But DEI is an extension of that. Ultimately, they are opposed to any sort of inclusivity or diversity measures, but no one suffers from efforts to create a more equitable and fair society. That they are willing to give white people payments, reparations, whatever, as a result of fostering a more inclusive environment in classrooms, I think is scary. I don't think it'll actually materialize. I hope I'm not wrong. But if it does, what message does that send? Even if it doesn't, what message does that send to everybody? The only way you're going to have an easy road or an easier road in this world is if you're white. That's it. And especially if you're male. That's just not the world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a patriarchal, white nationalist, Christo-fascist society. That's what Trump wants to build, and we all need to work together to oppose it.
Amen to that. And understand the irony of the ideology. The irony is, while saying that, yes, reparations is a fair remedy, a fair governmental remedy, while saying that reparations is a fair governmental remedy when a particular demographic has been unfairly treated, they can agree to all of the elements, all of the raw material that would equate to a reparations agreement for those who were disenfranchised due to the legal enslavement of Black bodies. They can agree with all the bare essentials needed to get to that conclusion, but instead of getting to the conclusion as it relates to Black folk and reparations, they come to the conclusion that only white people who have been allegedly discriminated against due to Black advancement, they are the ones who are worthy of reparations.